So, U.S. Treasury develops framework for international crypto regulation. Yesterday, the U.S. Treasury Department published a fact sheet which outlined how it could work with foreign regulators to address crypto digital asset sector. And this is a direct result of President Biden's executive order on crypto. It reads, the framework that is intended to ensure that America's core democratic values are respected. But when you go through this article and you look what's actually being said, the framework policy objectives include reducing the potential use of crypto for illicit finance, promoting access to financial services, supporting technological advances that promote responsible development and use of digital assets by advancing research and relationships that increase shared learning, to reinforce U.S. leadership in the global financial system. Basically, all this is talking about is payments. Is about payments. It's not giving us any types of guidelines for crypto. For, is this a security? Is this not a security? Is this a commodity? What regulatory agency is going to look at this? Who's going to regulate exchanges? What's happening with stablecoins? And I don't know if you guys have it. If you can pull up that tweet from John Deaton that he had spoke about. So he came on my show yesterday. John is an absolutely amazing attorney, but on the show, we talked about some of the implications regarding Voyager and Celsius. And he also said, as I told Crypto Indio, I hope I eat my words and I'll be thrilled to say I was wrong. But if you think Congress is going to pass bipartisan legislation regarding crypto during an election year dominated by guns and abortion, you'll be disappointed. The XRP case will be it. And, he's big with the XRP community, with the Ripple community. He's helping to kind of push back against what the SEC is doing. And I agree with him 100%. We are not going to see crypto regulation transpire, especially during election year, and especially with all these other things happening, which we know is doing a lot of detriment to American crypto participants. I think I want to actually hand this over to Adam for your take on it.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting story. My pet peeve about all of these central bankers who find their ways into various roles and then do a terrible job of predicting everything that, they think is going to happen and then continue to make rules about this stuff leads me to believe that actually it would be a much better outcome than the alternative if we don't see legislation happen this year. I think, again, there's sort of a naive belief in the space that regulation equals good regulation. And there's a huge difference between regulation and good regulation. I am confident that if Congress wanted to, they could pass regulation. I don't think it would be good. I think it would actually likely add confusion. I think it would create competitive barriers such that the larger players who are out there would become more ensconced in their position, and the people who are trying to disrupt those players would have a harder time doing that, which I'm never in favor of. So I think that there's a lot of stuff in that framework. But just to kind of draw it back to, what are these people always talking about when they're talking about this stuff? They're talking about power. And they're talking specifically about the power that the United States and the Western world via the United States holds by control of the currency. And so when they're talking about payments, that's because that's what they care about. They're really, really concerned that if an alternative emerged that doesn't even have to be a cryptocurrency, it could simply be backed by a cryptocurrency. It could simply be connected in some other way that would give it characteristics as a form of money that would make it so that it's completely unlike the system that we have today, and the system that we have not just in the United States, but that has basically infected the rest of the world with governments monetizing their own debt and doing all kinds of other terrible things that then have all these repercussions that we see today in the economy that, that we don't understand, in that, like, you can't connect a direct relationship, like a straight line from this thing to that thing. But they're all part of the ecosystem that creates the environment in which we all have to live. We all have to try to be successful. And that's just gotten harder and harder and harder and harder. So again, the United States is very focused on keeping the incredible privilege that they have by issuing the currency. And that's why they care about cryptocurrency. That's the only reason why they care about cryptocurrency, because if they lose that, there's bad things ahead for not just the government, but for the people as well. But the government, of course, is what the government cares about when they're talking about stuff like this, at least in my opinion. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I have two thoughts on this. First, it's interesting, it's international, right? The US government typically sets the framework for all these things. Like, they're the leader of the G20, the G7, all those international bodies. And that's why they're getting ahead of this, right? And they've typically been pretty slow, but we have definitely seen a lot of headlines coming out of the Treasury, coming out of different ABC regulators in Washington, D.C. about stablecoins and about crypto over the last 2 years. It is 100% accelerated ever since we've seen this bull market happen. So they're going to get some framework going at some point. You just hope that it's going to be robust and secure and actually help everyone out. Likely it's not going to happen, though, of course. Second point I'd like to bring up is Aave launching a new stablecoin project yesterday, which ties in really well to this story for a few reasons. The first point is it's a decentralized stablecoin based on a protocol that's been in existence for a while, right? So this protocol was able to use the existing assets that it has. It's operating already within this regulatory uncertainty. It just exists. People use it. People take loans out on it. And now they're able to build on top of it another financial primitive, a stable coin that people can use to transact with each other with. We've already seen this develop with MakerDAO. We talked about it yesterday. The DAI stablecoin is basically like the token behind almost all of DeFi. It's very important. And now there's a competitor to it. So what we're going to see, I think, going forward is more of these decentralized stablecoins are just going to continue to push the agenda forward. Like we're going to see more of these developers, more of these projects keep leaning into the uncertainty to build new products. And that's going to push the government to have to make a decision sooner rather than later. And hopefully they don't make a knee-jerk decision here. Hopefully that they can look at this and see this is beneficial. This allows people to make decisions with their own money, allows financial innovation. A lot of these DeFi things did very well over the last few weeks in comparison to things like Three Arrows Capital, Celsius, and others that just completely blew up because they're very centralized. Hopefully the government takes a look at that and says this is a good thing. Wendy, I'll give it to you for your last thoughts on this story.
How ironic, though, is that we see a lot of these decentralized protocols be more transparent and do a lot better than some of these centralized entities that supposedly had, that were supposedly licensed and registered to operate properly in the United States of America. And again, and I have to say it, I'm just not understanding why you wouldn't put something into effect because of all of this fallout from Celsius and from Voyager, Three Arrows Capital. And I believe your next story that you're going to talk about, the amount of lawsuits that are going to be clogging the system because the United States of America's government couldn't come out with some sort of guidelines is going to be ridiculous. We wasted so much time and money on this. And when I talk about time and money, it's not their time and money, it's our time and money because we all pay taxes. So again, I just have to express my disdain for what is happening because the United States government is supposed to protect us and they haven't done anything to do so. All they've done is they've impeded progression, and they've also created this really kind of unsafe environment for everybody when they're sitting here preaching on MSM that they're supposed to be here to protect us and they want to create really, really safe environment for us to participate in when in fact they've done nothing but wasted our time.